Back when I was a part of MGTOW, there used to be somewhat infighting in the community between the African Americans and some of the Caucasian Americans. Specifically, a lot of the African Americans would say that they were the first group of men to be put out of their communities. They were the first group of men to walk away. And they would say that we've been doing this a whole lot longer than the rest of you. And I used to think, well, that's not fair. We're all guys, we're all going through this together, so all of our opinions matter. And this has started happening to us all at the same time. Little did I know that I was not right. I wasn't right in this respect. On one hand, we all have an equal voice, but they were right. They went through this thing long, long before us. People often talk about the CRACK situation that happened in the 80s and how it affected the Black community predominantly. However, we need to understand that the fluffy white stuff, or its brother from a different mother, did not destroy the Black community. What destroyed the Black community began occurring long before CRCK was introduced to the Black community. No, I'm talking about something much worse and much more addictive, known as public assistance. Public assistance is the true rot that created so much disparity and division and destruction in that community that it has essentially obliterated and left these people with nothing. Black Americans were the first group of people to be put out of their communities. These men were put out of their homes. And honestly, I never knew these things. I did not know their history. I did not know what they were going through. And it's only recently that I became educated on it, because as a lot of us, we grow up in, families with two parents, and I had the typical Gen X, I had the typical Gen X childhood. It's a hard knock life. Parents are stingy. You get a laceration, you don't go to the hospital. You basically rub some dirt on it and move on. By the time I was 5 years old, I was already home alone. By the time I was 6, I was already using the stove and making food for myself. And I remember some Gen Xer popping up in the comments and saying, "Wow, you had it much better than me. I couldn't even use the stove. I couldn't even use the stove." You know, I remember when I was 5 years old, I had an accident at school. I know you guys are like, you're way too old for at 5. I had an accident. I peed myself at 5. My father came to the school and basically told me, "You have two choices. I'll take you home, I'll drop you off, and then I'm going back to work." At 5. This was back in the 1980s. All right. Something like this could not happen today, but you know, that's how that's how Gen X lived. We were basically on our own from the moment we were born. Our parents kind of let us know, like, "Kid, you're going to be, figure it out for yourself, because we're not going to be there for you. This is not an episode of Friends." you know and as a result, Gen X grew up to be tougher and stronger than other generations. But when you look at the Black community and what these people pass through, what these men pass through, it's absolutely unbelievable. And it's complete. And public assistance came into the community back in the 1960s, and what they did was they went around and they said to women, "Listen, we'll give you your own money. We'll even give you a house, but you can't have a man in the home." And a lot of women were like, "Well, we don't want to struggle," because everyone was struggling. That's a part of the American story, struggling. If you look at Mayumi, yes, Mayumi came from a family that was affluent, but when she came to America, she had to struggle. Her husband left the military. This guy was working in jobs that were not up to did not really represent his background. This is a military guy, and he was working in jobs that basically did not represent his background. And he took what he could get, and he worked hard and he hustled so that his wife could focus on medical school. And she graduated from medical school while she was pregnant. if I recall, she was married by the time she was like 22. She was in med school in the US, and she had to hustle. Now her kids are grown. They're off in Japan and they're going to school over there. Her and her husband are in the US, and they're basically just, working on their life. They have some land, they have some animals on their land, evidently. And, they had to build that for themselves. I remember Mayumi saying that, you know, when her husband wanted to start his security business, he went before her father and he kneeled. He kneeled before him and humbled himself to ask for the loan to start his security business. And it ended up thriving, and then he paid her father back within no time at all. But that's just that's how Gen X is. They did what they had to do, but there were many struggles along the way for everyone. That's a part of the American story. And Black women did not want to struggle. They didn't want to suffer, and they put these men out of their community for a handful of dollars. Because the way public assistance works is they give you just enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. And we're seeing the major ramifications of this in modern day society, because these communities don't have men in them. If you wonder where thug culture came from, the women put the men out, and then they started getting into relationship with thugs. That's where thug culture came from. That's why so many young Black men ended up modeling themselves off these individuals, because those are the men that women went and had children with. Those are the men that women promoted and celebrated. They weren't celebrating doctors and lawyers and engineers and rocket scientists. They were celebrating rappers and dudes that were selling, stuff they weren't supposed to be selling on street corners, and criminals, ex-convicts. Where did that culture? You look at this culture. That's what these men learned. So, they learned it at home. They learned it from their mamas. So what do you think they're going to emulate? What do you think they're going to look like? Why is it that young Black men are so focused on things like basketball and becoming athletes and all of these things? It's simple, because those are the kinds of men that their mothers were attracted to. Okay? That's what their mothers taught them. Put down that book. All right? Pick up that basketball. That's you right there. That's your future right there. I never knew these things.
Fathers are often driven away so that mother and children can eat.
85% of the head of household is a woman, because most of the men who should be in the household, they cannot make a decent living. And of course it is better to know that a child will be fed 12 months out of the year than 3 months, which during the summer when construction work you can make a decent living.
The man in the house rule was written to prevent welfare cheating, to make sure that aid to families with dependent children would go only to families headed by mothers. But the effect of the man in the house rule is to create for children an atmosphere of investigation and surveillance, and thus the welfare system in its operation turns out to be a system to make life harder for children.
The welfare system helps the disintegration of the American family. It offers money to families if the fathers will leave them and stay away, in that sense undoing the very stability of the family and taking away one of the two parents that children, of course, need. And what I have seen, I'm afraid to say, all over the country is that the legal system works against the best kind of home for these children. We don't encourage parents to be at home with the children. We don't encourage mothers to feel that they can find their destiny as mothers. We take away, in many of the most vulnerable homes, fathers from those homes. We herd foster children together in institutions rather than trying to find decent homes for them. We don't tap the resources we have in communities and with respect to older people so that they can help out vulnerable homes. We don't sanction and encourage and support in every way, morally, psychologically, and financially, the dignity and integrity of the home. And in the worst of it is that the homes that are most vulnerable are the homes that are least supported by the policies of local, state, and federal governments. And no wonder then, out of these more vulnerable neighborhoods, we get an endless cycle of troubled, delinquent, wayward youth who grow up even more and become the lawbreakers of our society. Now, I don't know how you break the cycle except by starting out with young children.
Guys, that was back in 1973. That was before the whole CRCK situation went down in the 80s. 85% of Black households were headed by single mothers in 1973. 85%. Guys, this is unbelievable. The history is out there. Okay? These Black guys, the Black men, they were put out of their communities. They were put out of their homes. They were put out of their families long before this started happening to all of us in general. The African American men, they were the first group of men to experience this, but it was just a test run for the rest of us. It was a 100% test run for the rest of us, because it was a plan to see if, it was control. It was all about control. And they tested it there among the most vulnerable group of people. And it worked so damn well that the program expanded. And it expanded to include everyone. Gen Alpha is going to be a large prison population. You can look at what's happened with Gen Z. This is not coincidental. All of that garbage that they learned at school, all of the DEI and all that other nonsense, it affects them badly. A lot of Gen Zers can barely read. Despite getting these degrees, many of them don't know squat, because they should never have graduated from high school, let alone went to college. You've got to be kidding me. This is among one of the reasons why employers don't want them. One, they're not well accustomed to the workforce, and two, they have very poor soft skills and hard skills. In other words, they got these college degrees, they got these high school diplomas under false pretense. They were not studious. Those exit exams that all of us had to take before we can get our degrees, get our diplomas, they didn't have to take them. Okay? And as a result, those degrees basically said that, hey, are those diplomas? Both of them said you had these basic skill sets so that you could function in the world. They were a measure of aptitude. They are no longer a measure of aptitude. All right? They're basically a participation trophy at this point. A participation trophy, nothing more than that. A participation certificate. This happened. Black men went through this before all of us. They honestly did, and we didn't listen when they said that we've been going through this for a while. We've been doing this for a lot longer than you. I didn't know. I honestly did not know what these men went through until I started, seeing men walking away from Western society, walking away, going overseas. And I saw that a lot of these were good, affluent Black men who had a lot of skill sets, HVAC technicians, lawyers, doctors, engineers. So I was like, what the heck? There's so many of you guys. Yeah. And they were put out of their communities, and they were relented to becoming, single, taking care of the children of single moms, becoming those step-up dads or stepped-on dads. And then they started to walk away. And now you're seeing how this is affected. This is something that expanded. With Gen Alpha, I've said this plenty of times, they're going to be a large prison population. That's the generation that comes after Gen Z. Those are the kids that are around 10 years right now. These kids can't read or write. They can't read or write, and their behavior is absolutely terrible, horrendous. All right, teachers are quitting over these kids. And there are people like, oh, they're too soft. They're too soft. You have Gen X teachers walking out like, I'm not going to put up with this punk. Millennials can't even handle them. Let's be real. Gen Alpha, Gen Zers who are becoming teachers now are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is so bad. Bro, you guys were not that much better. But Gen Alpha is so bad. And you know the reason why they're so bad? Because they didn't have fathers in the home. Okay? Do you guys listen to how Gen Alpha speaks? Like Gen Z is speaking Ebonics. It is what they speak. Their slangs are, it's Ebonics for white kids, and Gen Alpha, all they do is speak Ebonics. Like literally, no cap, on God, on God. That's how these kids speak. They can't read, they can't write, and they have no fathers. Okay, 80% of men in prison come from fatherless homes, and then when you add illiteracy in there, that just even makes it worse. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're screwed with both. And if you look at Gen Z, they're opting out of society. I mean, it's a zombie generation. But Gen Alpha will be a large prison population. I've said this already. Many Gen Alphas will never work a day in their lives. They absolutely won't. All right. This has been going on since the 60s. The video I showed you goes back to 1973. In 1973, 85% of households in the Black community were headed by single mothers, by women who had put the men out. Because, a lot of men, women didn't want, the children need to eat, and, they don't want to struggle. So a lot of the men, they work construction jobs in the summer, and for the rest of the year it's very hard. The family does, so they'd be struggling without that public assistance. Guys, this is the reason why. This is the reason why this whole universal basic income, or universal high income, as Elon Musk likes to call it, it is 100% about control. 100% about control. And my guess is that it will be based on income. So the more you make, the more you make, the less you will receive. All right. Everyone will not receive the same amount of money universally. It's going to punish those who work for a living and reward those who don't. It's about control. It's 100% about control. It is going to incentivize people not to work and to give more control to the state. And that money won't be free. Just like how there were rules and regulations to receive public assistance, there will be rules to receive the universal high income, and it won't be that high. Imagine getting a check for $2,500 a month and being dumb enough to try and live off that. Even in this economy, all right? Imagine receiving $5,000 a month. $5,000, and they're not going to receive $5,000. Let's say $4,500 a month, or $4,000 a month. So that works out to $48,000 a year, almost $50,000 a year. And they would call that a universal high income. Oh, everyone's getting $4,000. How much is it going to cost you for rent? How much is it going to cost you for food? And when would this happen? A couple of years from now? A man can live happily in a shoebox at the side of the road, but in a lot of different places, depending on where you live, that's barely rent money for a lot of people. And again, it depends. The average man would figure it out. The average woman would end up becoming completely dependent upon the state. And they would end up falling deeper and deeper into poverty, because they would live far beyond their means, maxing out credit cards and so much else. So they would be deep in debt, and it would basically, there would be no hope. It would devastate the economy. There's no such thing as free. There's no such thing as totally free. There's always rules attached. There's always the devil in the clause. All right. It's always in the writing. Okay. You always have to read the contract very, very carefully. Just like the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Those are not a Bill of Rights, like George Carlin said. Those are a Bill of Privileges that can be taken away at any time. Read them very, very carefully. By the way, guys, if you enjoy my content and you guys want more of my stuff, check out my newsletter. Subscribe to my newsletter for my personal thoughts and insights. You can click the link in the description. I release it every single week. So, go subscribe and, get my weekly newsletter. It's pretty damn lit. And also, guys, join the Angry Guy community. I finally set up a locals for you guys. You can check it out at angrygalaxy.com. You can click the link in the description of the video. There's exclusive videos on there. There are guides on there. You can go and take a poll. There's all kinds of stuff. You can connect with me, ask questions. It is incredible. Go check it out. You can talk with one another about things that you cannot really discuss on this platform. Go check it out. Subscribe, join the community. join the angry gang. Guys, what do you think regarding all of this? Black men tried to warn us, but many of us were not ready to listen. It is absolutely insane. And the thing is, this doesn't just affect us, it expanded because now the white communities are experiencing this. Like I said, Gen Alpha is, as a generation, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, they're all in bad shape. Many of them will never work a normal job a day in their lives.
And when they stole the coal jobs from us, we just kind of got left behind. We got no value anymore. They give us food stamps and disability. But besides that, we just have no purpose. It ain't no jobs. People just become stuck here. They don't have the transportation to even get to a job. And now, when I was a kid, all the men, they worked in the mines, and everybody was doing okay for themselves. The closest Walmart, 40, 50 miles from here, there ain't nowhere for no one to work. There ain't nothing to wake up to. There's nothing for these kids to do. There's just so much that we wish was available to us. We want to be better. We want to do better. But unfortunately, everything it takes to become better costs money that we just ain't got.
And guys, so if you read this, it says, wow, white man reveals the sad truth on how many white Americans are living. Do you see this? Please stop making social programs seem like they are only for blacks. They hurt poor people of all races. The country is suffering and pretending that it is not. And this is a circumstance that we're currently living in. Guys, it is a major wake-up call. It's a major wake-up call. It's a major wake-up call. Black men tried to warn us. What do you guys think about everything we discussed here today? Let's talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, man, walking away. And cheers.